How do you solve a problem like the president? Twitter banned him today for inciting violence. Not sure if Colorado's Democrats could help impeach him if they tried. And also, could the president just pardon all the Coloradans who stormed the Capitol? Your COVID questions cover what happens to people who are not covered by the hospital chains handing out shots. And how about we take off to a peaceful place for a while? And the rule is we can only talk about positive stuff there. Deal? Deal. Next. Monday starts the impeachment process against President Donald Trump, with some Colorado Democrats poised to play key roles. Late today, a punishment worse than impeachment for the president. He was banned permanently from Twitter for inciting violence. The tweetless president could face a second round of impeachment hearings, also overseen by the Congresswoman from Denver, Diana DeGette. Well, Democratic Senator Michael Bennet says he doesn't think there's time to remove the president via impeachment before the end of his term. Bennett talked with our politics guy, Marshall Zellinger.
We're also studying the question about whether or not he can actually be impeached after he leaves, because I think the most important question here is how to hold him accountable for what he did. This isn't a matter of vengeance. It's a matter of standing against authoritarianism and a matter of standing for our democracy.
You ran for president, and there's a perception that maybe you got tired of the Senate. Do you want to be a senator still? And has anything that's happened over the last few months or even this last week changed your opinion of the Senate being broken?
Well, first of all, I don't think that any person looking fairly at my record or what I've been doing would say that I ever got tired of being in the Senate. I'm tired of the Senate being a dysfunctional institution. I think this was a very proud moment for the Senate this week, actually, as we rejected the tyranny of Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley, and I hope we can build on this.
Colorado's Republican Congressman Lauren Boebert said today that the people who stormed the Capitol Wednesday were not conservatives. Wasn't clear if Congresswoman Boebert was saying that they were not being true to conservative principles, or if Boebert was stoking the conspiracy theory that it was really Antifa that led the insurrection. Boebert's office did not respond to my request for clarification. Boebert had mirrored the language being used by extremists ahead of the attempted coup. She posted on social media that morning, quote, "Today is 1776. NBC News is reporting today that the hashtag 1776 and Occupy were heavily used on extremist websites where storming the Capitol was being openly discussed. Colorado learned this week what happens when you send a patriot to Congress. I'm talking about the kind of American who is a patriot by their actions, not because they've printed it on a t-shirt or a hat. A patriot defined by the caliber of their character, not by the caliber of whatever they have holstered to their hip. When the United States Capitol was under attack, a patriot from Colorado, Congressman Jason Crowe, took action. The violent mob was at the doors of the House chamber when his Ranger training kicked in. He helped colleagues put on gas masks. He moved older members of Congress to the safest spot, told them to take off their member pins so the insurrectionists might not be able to identify them as high-value targets. Crowe called his wife to tell her that he might have to fight his way out, and he grabbed the only weapon he could find, a pen. If that mob had breached the doors, there is no doubt that the patriot that Colorado sent to Congress would have put his life on the line for his country again. Not on Twitter, not on cable news, his life in real life. Jason Crowe stood ready to defend the American Capitol and all those inside it, defend them against the insurrectionists egged on by the Colorado Congresswoman who told them that that day was 1776. Congressman Jason Crowe was among the last to leave that chamber that day. The Republican leader said the Democrat from Aurora was a hero. Even those who disagree with every vote Congressman Crowe has ever cast should be grateful that Colorado sent a patriot to Congress. So our state's getting about 70,000 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine each week. Governor said today that they're considering splitting up the Moderna vaccine into smaller doses because that's been proven effective, especially in younger people. There's also a belief at the state level that the Biden administration is going to release all of the currently manufactured vaccine doses at once, right at the end of January. Governor said that could speed things up here. 2.7% of Coloradans have received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. 16,000 plus people across the state were vaccinated just yesterday. Brings the total vaccinated in Colorado to a little more than 154,000. All right, ding ding. There is the bell for round 3 of your vaccine questions this week. We are trying to get through as many of them as possible. So tonight, our Nusha Roy looks at the options for healthcare workers who are outside the big hospital systems. And what happens if people from outside of Colorado try and get their shots here?
Our first question today comes from Erica, wondering about healthcare workers in Phase 1A and 1B who are not affiliated with major hospital systems. And she's wondering, where do they get vaccines? The state said that they should contact their local public health agencies. Those agencies are focusing their efforts on prioritizing vaccinations for any outstanding high-risk healthcare workers in Phase 1A and moderate-risk healthcare workers and first responders in Phase 1B. We got another question asking about what happens if people from out of state try to get vaccinated in Colorado. The state said it is not requiring providers to ask for proof a person lives in Colorado, but counties may choose to prioritize people living in Colorado versus other parts of the country when the supply is limited. It's important, though, to approach this question thinking about the big picture of public health. The state said they are not going to let residency slow down their distribution process. After all, this is a national vaccine campaign, and anyone in the state, whether they live here or not, has the ability to spread the virus. After Nebraska's governor said citizens and legal residents will get vaccine priority in the state earlier this week, some viewers asked, what about Colorado? Colorado's Department of Public Health said immigration status will not affect when you get a vaccine. More specifically saying, whether you are a U.S. citizen or not, we are all in this together. If you would like a vaccine, you will be able to get one, according to what vaccine phase you are in. State and local public health agencies will never share your information for any immigration or law enforcement purposes.
So I want to talk about access a little more here. We've talked a lot about our major hospital systems setting up websites and online portals to connect with patients, in particular the focus right now, 70 and up. But what happens if you're not a patient here, or maybe the internet's not really your thing and you don't have someone around to help you navigate all of this? That is where the governor is saying community health clinics as well as mobile clinics are going to be really important to reach as many people as possible. On that note, the Salute Health Family Center clinics are going to be hosting a clinic next week. This is going to be in Aurora, again, for 70 and older. If you are looking out for information on that, they are still working on setting up their online scheduling.
So, Nisha, when the hospitals set up their portals to get in and wait for the vaccine, can you just shimmy on in there even if you're not a patient of that system?
Yeah, so I mean, as you can imagine, all of this is very fluid right now. It's going to just depend on which hospital system. Some of them are opening up to non-patients. That includes UC Health, Boulder Community Health, where even if you're not a current patient there right now, you can still sign up. Essentially, Kyle, you're getting yourself on a list, and when the vaccine's available, you'll be able to get in.
All right, Nusha Roy, thank you. I wonder if, in our caution as journalists to not overly alarm people about the UK variant of COVID-19 that first showed up in America and Colorado, I wonder if maybe we didn't downplay the risk. I mean, it's no more deadly, and it should respond to the vaccine, but it really is a numbers game. The more contagious variant means more cases, means more hospitalizations, means more deaths. Talked about that today with our appointment on COVID-19 coverage, Chris Vanderveen, where we also discussed the governor's leadership.
You don't want to allow that variant to sort of gain a foothold in the community, because we know that as you said, it's a numbers game, and the more people who get it, the higher the odds of it transmitting to other people quickly. And we've seen this happen in England, and the worry is that if it gets a foothold in a community like Colorado, where it starts to spread rather quickly, it's going to be difficult to sort of bring it back down, because again, it's much more transmissible than the other virus. It's not any more deadly, it doesn't lead to any more severe symptoms, but it just goes from one person to another person easier. And because of that, you've got to be looking for it. And I really sort of wonder, and I think a question that I have for the state is, how much are we really looking for it right now? We found it a couple of places. The numbers are low. We know it's swimming around the community. I wish we could sort of look in and with some sort of microscope and sort of see exactly how many people have that variant so we would know how big of a threat it is.
The governor recently said that he understands there's concern about the way that he has communicated changes to the vaccine schedule.
There's two ways to approach this. One would be you wait until everything is perfect, till, web portals are set up to, and the systems are in place, and you don't announce anything until then. The other way is what I think is the path that makes sense to save lives, which is, of course, more chaotic because you're building the car while you're driving it. But in the meantime, you're getting the vaccine into the arms of 70 and up.
The governor's office and the State Department of Health have issued directives that have, quite frankly, simply been quite confusing. It's difficult for me as a reporter to sort of communicate all of these things that have been going on. Some of these things that have been changing last minute, late night. The governor acknowledged when I asked him that question earlier in the week that he's sort of like, we're building the car as we're driving. And that's the scenario that he puts forward in terms of what he's doing right now with the state. It is imperfect. And I think there's an acknowledgement that has been imperfect. But the messaging from the state has been a bit of a mess. And you know that, Kyle, because we have gotten so many phone calls from people, particularly Monday and Tuesday of this week, from people that were just desperate for information. They had heard the governor tell them, if you're 70 and older, you can get vaccinated. And then later the state had to walk that back and say, well, wait a second, if you're 70 and older, you can get vaccinated between now and February 28th. The problem is that everybody heard that they were moving to the front of the list, to the line, and they had to move to the back of the line, or they didn't even know where the line existed. That's been confusing.
That was a piece of more than 10-minute conversation with Chris about what we know and what Chris and I wonder about. It's all on the next YouTube channel. You all said, pardon me. We have some pardon questions. Can President Trump pardon himself? Can he be pardoned by his vice president? Will he pardon his supporters who stormed the Capitol? We found you some answers. And what do you say we escape? Go to a frozen lake in Evergreen. The fish are biting, and nothing but good news is up for discussion. Next. Tonight's next question comes from Heather and quite a few other Next viewers. She asked if President Trump can pardon himself for any crimes he committed while in office. We asked our legal analyst, Whitney Traylor.
This is one issue that we don't have direct evidence, but I will tell you that this came up when President Nixon's attorney had suggested that, which prompted the Department of Justice in 1974 to issue a memo, and they said, no, a president can't self-pardon. And the reason was they said there's a fundamental tenet that no man can be a judge in his own case. So according to the Department of Justice, the answer would be no.
Next viewer named Laura also asked if Vice President Pence could pardon President Trump if Pence takes control either after impeachment or through the 25th Amendment. That is an absolute yes. Gerald Ford did that for Richard Nixon in '74 after Nixon resigned. I was curious if President Trump could offer a blanket pardon for the mob that took over the Capitol. Whitney Traylor said he did not think that there was precedent in the law for that. The death of Elijah Mclean is going to get a look now from a grand jury that can call witnesses, examine evidence, and recommend charges. The 23-year-old died back in August of 2019 after a struggle with Aurora police officers. They put him in a carotid hold and paramedics injected him with ketamine. Elijah Mclean died 3 days later. His case belatedly got national attention when America was discussing police brutality. None of the officers involved was fired for Mclean's death. One was later let go for joking about it. Colorado's Democratic Attorney General Phil Weiser is the one who made that decision to impanel the new grand jury.
A beautiful day, so much sunshine out there, and now tonight the clouds starting to race into the metro area as I'm tracking our next storm. This one drops across the Four Corners by early tomorrow morning, spreading snow across eastern Colorado into the Denver metro area by tomorrow morning. Again, overnight it's still dry, the clouds are with us, but 6-7 a.m. here comes that snow. It'll be with us throughout most of the day, but you can really see those higher amounts are going to be across southeastern Colorado. Here in the Denver area, I'm looking at 1 to 3 inches, some higher amounts further to the
the south near Castle Rock about 2 to 4. Temps tomorrow on the cooler side with 20s and 30s across the entire state. We'll clear things out, bring the sunshine back on Sunday, and then a big warm up on tap next week.
You know, even in the toughest weeks, you always come through for nonprofits in our community. First time that we are taking your very generous show on the road up to North Park. Your Word of Thanks microgiving campaign this week supports Mountain Family Center. They run the only food pantry in Jackson County. They're in Walden, and they have 3 more in Grand County. People in that part of Colorado have to drive long distances for fresh groceries, and they're expensive. The winter weather and the bad economy only complicate that food insecurity. If you text the word thanks to 303-871-1491, I'll send you that link so that you can join me and tons of other people in the audience in donating. I just checked, and we are like this close to raising $50,000 together so that we can provide groceries to our neighbors in North Park. Thank you for all your help. Evergreen Lake is frozen over, so this week's edition of Your Good News is on ice.
My good news is the kids are back in school this week.
And the parents rejoice. Next. It's Friday, so we make time for your good news, even if there has been an attempted coup this week. Our photojournalist Tom Cole loves to use this assignment just to go to cool places, and this week, a cold one, Evergreen Lake.
I love just being out here. It's better than being cooped up in front of the television.
My good news is we're not in school yet and we're out here fishing.
My good news is that we had a winter break. I was getting kind of tired with online school for a while.
My good news is the kids are back in school this week.
My good news is that all my family is healthy and that we're all still alive in this new year, and just that we're out here fishing.
My good news is that me and all my friends and family are safe and we're out here enjoying fishing, having a good day on the water.
My good news? So my friend and I like to go get Dunkin' a lot, and we go there like all the time, and we're there so much that one of the workers like gave us like free Dunkin' just out of like the kindness of their hearts. So that's really nice.
My good news is that I have an extra week off school.
My good news is my grandmother was tested for COVID, tested positive, but she is not sick. She's doing just fine.
My good news is just it's 2021. It's a new year. Excited to see what it brings to us.
It's a sign outside the last business you'd think would ever close. That and your feedback next. It's a sign to never say never or ever, I guess, because the Ever Open Cafe is closed. The place has been in Fort Collins since 1953. Pandemic forced the Ever Open to close, but not permanently. Our viewer Corky took the photo last month, and we understand the Ever Open Cafe reopened 3 days ago. Notes tonight from Julie, Spring, and Jennifer, who all said that our comments about the heroism of Congressman Jason Crowe brought them to tears. I think you really got to think about what happened at the Capitol. Crowe stood ready to defend the people in the House chamber with his life against a mob whipped up by his colleagues. See you next time.